Undp. I welcome you all to this memorable event being organized as part of COP13 of CMS. We are extremely privileged to have amongst us on this occasion Shri Prakash Javadekar, Honorable Minister, Environment, Forestry, Climate Change, Government of India.
So wait.
Very good. Website कहाँ है?
मैं
600 लोग जो प्रयोग करते हैं जी, बहुत अच्छा
सर
600 लोग जो नेचर बेस्ड सॉल्यूशंस विभिन्न क्षेत्रों में निकालते हैं, उनका एक तरह से यह सम्मान भी है, रिकॉग्निशन है, और उसके लिए मुझे बहुत खुशी है। जो भी इस कार्यक्रम से जुड़े सबका बहुत बहुत बधाई। वेलकम एंड नाउ पीपल विल लाइक टू लिसन टू यू।
I'm very pleased to share that India is a forerunner in the achievement of Aichi Target 11, and India is also in the process of identifying and mapping potential OECMs. And in this context and the innovative approach we have done is the institutionalization of the Indian Biodiversity Awards, and which every alternate year recognizes extraordinary efforts being made both at the community and individual level to conserve, protect and manage biological diversity. And these awards were given for the first time when India hosted the CVD COP in 2012 in Hyderabad. In the last 8 years, we have documented over 600 initiatives spread across the length and breadth of the country, which have the potential of being considered as OECMs. So these awards are given on the International Day for Biological Diversity. So while we have individually felicitated those award winners, we realize that the documentation done in the process can be meaningfully disseminated through an electronic platform for wider replication and scale up within and outside the country. And for that collection of data and the information was released through a website just now by the Honorable Minister. We have now the privilege of having Ms. Elizabeth Maruma Mrema, Executive Secretary of CBD. So may I now request Mr. Mathur to formally welcome Ms. Elizabeth Maruma Mrema to this side event. As we all know that electronic medium these days are very favored route for dissemination. There are many who prefer a hard copy format, and that is why we considered it appropriate to document it, and it just now got released by our Honorable Minister also. So 10 award-winning and special mention cases pertaining to conservation of migratory species in the form of this booklet has just been released by Honorable Minister, and I think it was just only befitting that to this occasion of CMS COP that this kind of compendium has been prepared by MOEF in collaboration with National Biodiversity Authority and United Nations UNDP. So may I now request, since Ms. Elizabeth is here, can I request for your remark before we start the technical session?
Thank you more so also to the officials of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the Government of India in general, UNDP, whom together we've been collaborating in this initiative, and also my colleagues at the Secretariat, and you all distinguished delegates attending this event this afternoon. For me, it gives me an immense pleasure to address this important event Of course, we had the minister with us, but we know he's also busy, particularly this week, where each one of us would like to get his personal attention, and we thank him that he was able to join us for those few minutes. More so, I'm even more privileged and quite happy to be part of the launch of the web portal on nature-based solutions from India, which is a joint initiative of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change of the Government of India, together with the National Biodiversity Authority of India and UNDP India. To all of them, we say sincere thanks. It is important to document these positive solutions because we are saying that the species are threatened with extinction. We also say the nature provides the solution, and these best practices are important for that. We know the recent assessments from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, has shown that the current climate change projections will have significant impacts on the geographical distribution and range of species. Overall, more species will experience a contraction of their habitat range and less suitable climatic conditions, greatly increasing their extinction risks. Impacts of climate change on species, coupled with our own human-induced pressures, reduce their resilience and capacity to deliver essential ecosystem services, including carbon sequestration. Therefore, nature-based solutions such as better production, management, and restoration of ecosystems can make significant contributions to climate change mitigation, adaptation, as well as disaster risk reduction. At the same time, the nature-based solution will enable us to maximize the core benefits between the goals of all the Rio Conventions as well as the Sustainable Development Goals. Nature-based solutions with biodiversity safeguards are estimated to provide 37% of climate change mitigation needed by 2030 to meet the goal of keeping the global warming levels to below 2 degrees. It is on this background that the launch of the web portal is very timely and continue to assume significance. I congratulate the Ministry, UNDP, the National Biodiversity Authority for this initiative. The world is really under a severe biodiversity crisis, and all these recent reports have underlined this fact. Extinction rates, we've also been reminded yesterday and today, are estimated to be 1,000 times the background rates, and future rates will even be over 10,000 times higher than what is today. The Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystems Services, IPBS, reports that 75% of the Earth's land surface is significantly altered. 66% of the ocean area is experiencing increasing cumulative impacts, and over 85% of wetlands by area have been lost. On average, the population sizes of wild vertebrate species have declined precipitously over the last 50 years, both on land, in freshwater, and in the sea, and around 25% of the species in assessed animals and plant groups are threatened. So the statistics are not giving us a good picture. And it's not we've been reminded again, when we talk of species, we ourselves are equally species. So we should not look at species as if it's a distant feature. We are part of that species. So we are equally threatened, and we are in part of this crisis. Furthermore, the IPBS report made a call and unequivocally reiterated that the most significant direct drivers of biodiversity loss habitat loss and fragmentation, both in terms of changes in land and sea use, direct exploitation, with overexploitation being more significant in marine systems. Factors of climate change, invasive alien species, diseases, and pollution are also part of those direct drivers of biodiversity loss. Most of these drivers of biodiversity loss, we know they can be managed through area-based conservation measures, and they've been tested. Currently, 15% of land areas and almost 8% of the ocean is under designated protected areas. And the most recent assessment have shown us that around 40 to 50% of the ocean and the land are still relatively intact, in intact condition. The quantitative elements of Aichi Target 11 are nearing achievement and likely, hopefully, with all your cooperation and support, to be surpassed before the end of this year. Can we be part of this contribution to celebrate this achievement before the end of the year? We are almost there, but we still need those few percentages to enjoy a glass of champagne at some point before hopefully before the biodiversity conference of the parties. Adding to existing other ecosystems, conservation management systems areas will further be able to improve this coverage of protected areas. There is therefore a need for better representation, increased emphasis on areas important for biodiversity, for improving management effectiveness, equity, and conservation outcomes, and a focus on connectivity and integration into wider landscapes and seascapes. Aichi Target 11 addresses the value of protected areas and other area-based conservation measures as proven already vital and cost-effectiveness of nature-based strategies, not only for conserving biodiversity, but also for securing ecosystem goods and services, enabling also climate change adaptation and mitigation, and helping supporting countries achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And therefore, the achievements of Aichi Target 11 will generate those multiple benefits for our own well-being of the society, contributing solutions to the most important challenges as set out in the Biodiversity Strategic Plan and emphasized through the Sustainable Development Goals. It will also make major contribution towards facilitating sustainable development through poverty elevation and enhanced economic prosperity, and towards living a life in harmony with nature at all levels, be it at local level, national level, and global levels, not only for the current generation, but more so our children, the future generation. As ecological and economic conditions vary, it may be prudent to have multiple targets and objectives in the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework to be able to address these different conditions. Some studies have highlighted the need for the retention of large areas of natural systems beyond the sites designated in networks of protected areas, as well as the ecosystems management areas. Even with bold targets for area-based conservation measures, there will be need for integration in the wider landscapes and seascapes. Integration is equally vital when we consider coastal areas, wetlands, and other inland waters where upstream impacts become more and more important. To ensure a connected network of protected and conserved areas are maintained, we'll need that wider integration of the landscapes and seascapes, which often require multi-sectorial planning, for example, through the application of marine spatial planning. Ambitious targets for area and site-based conservation will be important elements of the efforts to meet the 2050 vision of living in harmony with nature. Targets are needed both for the effective protection of sites of importance of biodiversity, as well as for the retention or restoration of much larger areas necessary for the protection of nature and ensuring its contribution to people. The zero draft of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework hopefully will provide and provides this opportunity. With these long, uncalled for remarks, I wish you a successful and fruitful event, and thank you again, the organizers of this event. Thank you.
Before we proceed further, can I request Mr. Sarat Babu and Chikan to please take your seat in the chairs. And we start the technical session. I'll just request my additional secretary, Ms. B.V. Uma Devi, to set the tone for this technical session.
Acting Executive Secretary of CBD Secretariat, Mathur, National Biodiversity Authority Chairman. Madam Ruchi, representative from Undp India. Shri Babu, Senior Project Management Officer from CBD. My colleagues and participants. A very good afternoon to all of you. At the outset, I would just like to thank the COP for giving this opportunity to showcase the initiatives taken by the Ministry of Environment and Forest in biodiversity conservation. This is a great opportunity for us, and biodiversity conservation, as you all know, is an overarching mandate of the Ministry of Environment and Forest, covering various sectors and various divisions and various components, such as forestry, migratory species, the wild animals, the marine and coastal diversity, and other sectors like especially agriculture, biotechnology, and science and technology, and other sectors as well. The 15th meeting of Conference of Parties and Convention on Biodiversity will be held in October 2020, when the CBD Strategic Plan for Biodiversity 2011-2020 and its targets, the 20 targets, well known as the IT targets, are culminating. As per the IT target 11, by 2020, as we were discussing from morning, at least 17% of terrestrial and inland water and 10% of coastal and marine areas, especially areas of particular importance for biodiversity and ecosystem services, are conserved through effectively and equitably managed, ecologically representative, well-connected systems of protected areas, and other effective area-based conservation measures, so-called OECMs, and integrated into wider landscapes and seascapes. In this regard, I'm very happy to inform that this group that India has exceeded the terrestrial component with 27% of its total geographical area in the biodiversity conservation. Various initiatives have been taken by India to achieve these targets, and one of them being the announcement of Biodiversity Awards, a joint initiative of the Ministry of Environment and Forest, the National Biodiversity Authority, UNDP, covering across sectors and states and various components and various methodologies. As of now, we have around 600 such innovative cases which have been documented, of which the best cases are chosen for awards. The web portal launched by Honorable Minister in the morning today, just now, has been created for maintaining a repository of nature-based solutions available online. This has a potential to add many such efforts, not only from our country, from various other countries also who are working on biodiversity conservation, identified over years, and will be a rich source of innovative solutions to biodiversity conservation. With this, I would thank all the participants, and I hope you will have meaningful and interesting deliberations today. Thank you.
I request Mr. Babu to make his presentation on global status of Aichi Biodiversity Target 11.
I would conclude less than 5 minutes, but when I start speaking on protected areas, I am uncontrollable. Especially because my boss is here, I have to be more careful not to speak very superfluous things. And also some of the parties are here, I have to be very careful, otherwise they are paying my salary.
That is the role of moderator becomes important here.
Exactly.
I'll stop you at 5 minutes.
Exactly. So next slide, please. Okay, so 2010, exactly 10 years, because everybody is talking about this 2020, so very super year for biodiversity. Why it is super year? What is this really global biodiversity framework, the zero? So in 2010, 95 countries have really agreed, a very remarkable decision, and agreed about the 2050 vision. As a part of 2050 vision, they have agreed the strategic plan for the first decade, that is 2011 to 2020, and 20 Aichi targets. The main purpose of the strategic plan for the first decade and the 2020 Aichi targets are actually to achieve the 2050 vision. So almost now we have only 8 months left for the first decade. So then what is the status of and for each of the target, they presented different color arrows. The blue color arrow means the target is reached. The green color means the green color means there is good progress. If it is continued in the same pace, it will be reached. Then the red color means there is no progress. It's a status quo. But the purple means forget about the progress. It is actually going down. So in 2020 again, we have to prepare such kind of a global status in the snapshot. If we don't achieve anything, then people will not have any faith on us. Oh, it's really talking shop. They agree something, they never achieve anything. So really, how to achieve anything? How we can do this thing? Because target 11, among all the targets, the target 11 has shown very good progress. Is it possible for us to achieve? So what we did is, of course, so for achieving anything, first of all, what we want to know is what is to be achieved. If we don't know what is to be achieved, how can we achieve? Once we know what is to be achieved, then what actions are needed for achieving that what is to be needed. Then the last point is actual implementation of those actions. So in this background, what I want to show is what is the status of the target level now, how India can really contribute for clinching it. I don't want to go much detail into this thing because the focal point of CBD in India is looking at me and I'm very scared. So now target 11 has 9 elements, 2 quantitative and 7 qualitative. The 2 quantitative is the terrestrial and the marine percentage protected areas. That is 17% terrestrial and 10% coastal and marine. So what is the status now at the global level? So we have at 2020 January, this month, last month, we reached 15%. What is the target? 17%. What is the gap? 2%. Now in case of marine, because it's a CBD strategic plan, countries have sovereign rights over their national jurisdiction only. So already within the national jurisdiction, that is 200 nautical miles, the area is more than 18%. It means we have already surpassed. But if you take the global ocean as an entity, we have at least 7.91 or 8%. Only we need 2% more. Then, of course, areas important for biodiversity. I don't want to go into detail about it, but there are 12,000 KVAs have been identified. What is the status of these KVAs by the existing protected areas? Then the ecological representation, because there are 826 terrestrial and 232 marine ecological regions in the world. So the element of ecological representative in 2020, if the protected areas and the OECMs really have the representation of all the terrestrial and the marine ecological regions, we can safely claim that we have reached that element. Now, what is the status in India? The Madam Executive Secretary, the Madam Additional Secretary told that we have about 27%, right? But you know how much is actually represented in the WDPA? Only 6%. Whereas you have 27%. So 20% increase above and above the report, what is reported in WDPA, that 20% of India's level can contribute to 0.5% at the global level. So if you really update your information in the WDPA, we have already reached 1/4 of what is needed. And that 1/4 is not in vacuum. It will invariably cover ecological regions, cover areas important for biodiversity, connectivity, and governance system. So buy one, get 6 free. Of course, not much time. But what is the strategy? I already told you about this thing. Right? Now, what we did is, we launched a global partnership. Because for the last 2 days, the ministers clearly emphasized that Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the Indian context. Here, the partnership, what we did is, we bring all the partners together. Of course, India is also a member of the partnership. And let us come together, pool our energy, resources, and push the cart or paddle the canoe towards reaching the goals and the targets. So this is the global partnership what we launched in 2018 November. Now why this partnership? Because all of us have our own agendas, all partners. So we are trying to push our own agendas. In this whole process, we lose the focus. But the idea is, while really pushing your own agenda, how can you align your activities for reaching the global goals? If we can do it, then we can do it.
Last 1 minute.
1 minute. So, as my boss told you, it's not only about the conservation. If you really implement the target 11 actions, you can contribute to the other targets. You can really contribute to the goals, sustainable development goals. You can contribute your obligations in the other MEAs, CITES, etc. In this, what we really presented, buy one, get 8 free. If you really take implementation of target 11 action, you are meeting your obligations in CITES, CMS, the UNCCD, got your NDC, your other SLA, etc. So now I will stop it. I just want to end with a quotation from Martin Luther King Jr. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. We have achieved the goals in 2010. The target date is 2020. We have just 8 months left. Go on talking like that. So when we really, this advice is really timeless and a reminder that we only do great work and improve the world by moving forward. The only way to move forward is to move forward together. When all partners, including governments, pool their energy and resources and pull the cart toward the direction of reaching the target, achieving the target would be a reality. So India can really play a very important role. If you really update your WDPA, you are giving me 5%, you can make my life more or less miserable. And that 5% is not on that tune. It will improve the ecological representation. There are 7 ecological regions in India which are gapped. If you really map that area, all the gaps will be filled. There are 250 KBAs which are not covered. By doing this, you can do it. And connectivity. So look at it, focused action in the next 8 months, what we can do and what we can do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharad Babu. He is, as all of you know, that he is Senior Program Management Officer, and his passion about the biodiversity conservation is evident when he speaks. That is why we deliberately kept just 5 minutes, because we knew that he's going to surpass those 5 minutes. And we have kept 2 minutes cushioning Dr. Mathur's speech. So Dr. Mathur, you have 7 minutes only.
I have to begin exactly where Sarath left, and he raised a point that we have to keep moving, and that is the roadmap of how India is going to move beyond what we have already achieved. it rarely happens that I am asked to present in a situation where actually the target has been achieved, but not communicated. So we are now in a different situation, and I'm going to share with you what we are doing now. I don't need to repeat what IG target is, but this is what is India's situation. See, we have different acts. The most important one is the Wildlife Protection Act. Then we have the Indian Forest Act. Then we have the Environment Protection Act. And then we have the Biodiversity Act. Under these 4 acts, we have now worked out the areas that we have are to be designated as protected areas and as OECM. And it is this total that we are talking about. This totals up to 27%. But as Sarath mentioned, the catch is that the WCMC that operates the World Database of Protected Areas and the information that we are presenting it here, there is a kind of a mismatch there. So that is what we need to address. And beyond that, I have also to share that while we have already achieved 2020 targets for IG 11, we are now looking beyond 2020. And this is the scheme or journey for beyond. We now have internal consultations. We looked at who are our landholders. Obviously, government is a big landholder. And when I say government, those who know the Indian history, we have military cantonments spread across the country. They are huge pieces of land with good forests and good wildlife. They certainly fit in the definition of OECM. So we would be now looking into the mapping of these cantonments all over India, and the moment we are able to map them, inventorize them, we should be able to contribute further to OECM. Then we have community managed area, what we call as sacred groves, again spread across the length and breadth of the country. If we just pull them together and convert them into a spatial form, we would be again contributing to that. One other area which our consultation realized, the industrial setups. The industries of India also hold lands, and now they are also converting into green. And we are now getting some very good examples where industrial lands also can be considered under OECM. So that would be our target next, that how do we do that. And then in various projects with the international agencies, we have set up medicinal plant areas. These areas are very rich because they have endemic plants, they have all kinds of plantations which contribute to life and livelihoods. So these just 4 categories which you see in the red can significantly up the overall quantum and contribution of the OECM in the country, and that is what we have set agenda for us to do that. And I just move 1 more minute to take this advantage because oceans and seas and marine are also very, very important. So we have a target in the SDG 14, and there are these 7 elements of that. I now want to spell out the voluntary commitments. And you heard our Prime Minister saying that India is committed to have a kind of a policy. And this is what the voluntary contribution India is now reporting in the big biodiversity summit in New York that is going to take place. We have made already this submission that we are now committed, first of all, as I said, a single-use plastics by 2020, and India is also prepared to lead the global effort. We already have a national marine litter policy. See, these are the kind of things which, when we talk of effective management, we understand how it operates in terrestrial front, but there is a similar issue in the case of marine on that. Then we need to look at regional ocean modeling systems, because these areas are also up for perturbations. Ecosystem-based fisheries management. This is again where India is now looking at it. Our different departments and agencies are formulating this policy so that all those issues which are now having or affecting our fisheries will get there. The last one I want to point it out over here. This is very important. We have under the CPT leadership identified ecologically and biologically sensitive areas in the marine one. We have also found out what are the important marine mammal areas, and we have also worked out what are the important coastal and marine biodiversity sites. And if you total them up, they come up to about 3 lakh square kilometers. So that will be the kind of contribution that we would be making, and we have, as I said, already submitted this voluntary nature of that. And just to catch on to what Sarath was saying, there are three scenarios which you see. The current status, which is not very good here, but the moment India reports this, you will see that all your graphs which were either performing low or not performing strongly will definitely move ahead on that. So this is the way ahead. Just 4 points that we had an internal meeting in our ministry. Our conservation division is heading that. We need to harmonize India's PAs and OECM database that you have been talking about. We also need to refine our database by doing actually boundary surveys, because my colleagues present here, they know many of those boundaries are not authenticated. We need to do that. For all our protected areas, we do a management effectiveness evaluation. Ma'am, I have a very pleasure in saying that we might be the only country in the world that has institutionalized the management effectiveness process. Our tiger reserves, which you heard about them today, 4 cycles of such evaluations have been done, and all our 765 protected areas have been done once. The same methodology or a similar methodology we will follow for the OECMs. So that is the next step. And ultimately, we have started, while people are talking about the post-2020, we have our forms further that we want to expand the OEC. I must very honestly say, there is very little scope in expanding the protected areas. The national park sanctuaries, we are already up for saturation. It will be very difficult to extend that, but OECM certainly. The military lands, the sacred groves, the temple areas, the community-led areas. So that is what we would be now working to look at the 2030 targets. Thank you very much.
Now I request Dr. Ruchi Pant, Head Natural Resource Management, Biodiversity, Undp, to speak on innovative tools for identifying and mapping OECMs in India. We have to allow sometimes some minutes for the audience also to ask questions, so 2 minutes for you only.
Where Dr. Mathur stopped, I'll take forward from there. Map, identify, map, document, and then report on OECMs at some point. Hopefully, we'll do that before the end of the 2020. That's where my job begins. As part of the sub-regional network, or leading the sub-regional network on implementation support that we are giving to other South Asian countries from India, we are now trying to share experiences from India, how we have done this. Like Dr. Mathur mentioned about the other effective area-based management measures, area-based conservation measures that we have identified. Now is the time to actually map all of those and then report. But at the same time, we want to share these experiences with other countries in the region so that together we can contribute to the global targets. And in that context, so these are the 9 countries, 8 other countries that we are supporting through an environment network or an electronic network. And the role is, as I mentioned, to help the other countries to also achieve these targets. Now, the innovative tools that we have identified, one we have talked about it, is the India Biodiversity Awards, which were started in 2012 at the COP of CBD in Hyderabad. So that's the first time when we started these awards. And the purpose was slightly different. The idea was to just capture good practices from across the country where a lot of work is happening on conservation by individuals, NGOs, community institutions, and even other government institutions and local government, self-government institutions. So we tried to, so this process was very successful and the ministry institutionalized it, and they said that we should actually have these categories which are aligned with the principles and tenets of the Convention on Biological Diversity. The categories are conservation of threatened species, sustainable use of all species, natural resources, access and benefit sharing, and best biodiversity management committee, which is the most, the unit of administration at the local level. And so through this awards process, as earlier also it was mentioned, we have captured about 600 cases
which have the potential to be considered as OECMs. So the second tool that we are using is the web portal, which was just launched a little while ago by the Honorable Minister. And here it's going to be an interactive portal. While we have already made a digital map of India and made all these solutions available at this digital platform, so you will find 600 cases and you can get a little bit of details on what is happening there, who are the people, what species are they conserving, how much area, what ecoregion, etc. So all that information is available there, and people from different countries and within our country can use it for replication and scale up. Okay, so the third tool that we are using is we are trying to collate information from all the states of India, and we are putting it on, we are doing a GIS mapping, and this is one of the examples of the state of Orissa, where we have captured the protected areas, but beyond the protected areas, you see we have community conserved areas, we have Ramsar sites, we have eco-sensitive zones, key biodiversity areas, important bird areas, etc. So once you map all this on the state map, you will find that the percentage of area under OECM's NPAs enhances very much, and the qualitative targets that Dr. Sarath talked about, they all get covered under this, and it enhances the contribution towards the IT target 11. Then we have this another innovative tool. Now you'll wonder whether these cases that we are gathering, are they all validated? It's not possible to validate all these. So there's an eminent jury which goes, and about 1/3 of these are validated. But we have started a new program along with the NBA recently, where we are engaging interns. So there are these dynamic young-looking interns. At the moment they are 11, but the idea is to reach out to the entire country to have at least one intern located in all the state biodiversity boards, which will then help these biodiversity boards to validate these good cases that are coming up through the awards process. Another strategy that we adopt, which even the CBD Secretariat is looking at, is that partnerships. So here we are looking at new partners. Dr. Mathur just mentioned about industrial campuses. He talked about the defense establishment, the military cantonments.
Half a minute, Dr. Ruchi, half a minute.
Yeah, and so it's the last thing. So the idea is to reach out to all of them, and it can be only done through partnerships. Then we can capture these areas which have gone kind of like unsung, unreported, and once we capture all these cases, the contribution will go many-fold more than what we have right now. This is just an example of Godrej and Boyce, which is the industry which was given a special mention in the last awards, and look at the work they have been doing since 1980, and a huge amount of mangrove areas in Maharashtra have been conserved with their support. And in the recent nomination that we received, we got another case of TVS Motors Company, where you see 1/3 of their industrial estate, it's a large area, and they get huge number of migratory species, they have number of snakes, they have 150 plants, of which almost 50 are red listed, IUCN red listed. There are 6 species of IUCN red listed migratory birds which come here. So it's a huge refuge that is being provided by this corporate. So this way, if we can capture all this, we know there are about 2,600 square kilometers under industrial campuses which are mandatory. They have to have green cover. So if we capture this information, I think there is a big potential. These are also potential OECM sites. This is just a way forward, because we are also coordinating this South Asia sub-regional network for implementation support for achieving IT 11. So this is kind of a request to all the national focal points, if there's anyone here. If not, if you go back and if you can contact your national focal point to help us. We can reach out to you. We want to reach out through webinars and the electronic network that I talked about. And we have here the names of people who are participating in this network to begin with. So that's about it. Thank you very much.
These alpine zone across the Himalaya, most of them are not PAs, but they are very well protected otherwise, and they are a critical habitat. So please have a look at that. I know about Arunachal Pradesh, it's entirely blank. So PA it will not cover, eco-sensitive zone it will not cover, but it will give you a very substantial area which is not accessible use. but it's a very unique habitat for a lot of species, including migratory species. So please look into that.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Avik Banerjee from the Wildlife Conservation Society India. Thank you very much for the very informative presentation. I just had one question on marine areas. So you mentioned that we are considering ICMBAs, important marine mammal areas, and a few others to include so that we achieve the 11th target. What kind of conservation plan can we think of for such a dynamic area? What do we have in mind for such a dynamic area as our marine spaces?
Very quickly, certainly they are not going to be protected areas. So because we know there is a large amount of resource use which is going on. So see, the definition of OECM is very flexible, and Mr. Agarwal is here. We had a meeting and he said that we must further liberalize it and make it flexible so that people are not turned away as people generally do when we talk of a national park or a sanctuary. But it's an important point which we have to consider. But certainly that's why we are not in a rush to declare them as PA, but to look at what form of OECM, and we will have to follow a management regime which is both a win-win for conservation and for resource use.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay, good afternoon. I am Abdullah Sao from the Gambia. Thank you for the informative presentations you've made here. I just have two observations. That is regarding transboundary management. Do you have transboundary protected areas or biosphere reserves as well? Thank you.
Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh are to begin with, and so what we are doing, we are in the process of identifying those areas, and we have done an initial survey, and 27 such TBPAs have been identified. And obviously, when we talk of transboundary, the Ministry of External Affairs comes over. It's not just the biological ministries which we do that. They have advised us that with our friendly neighbors in Nepal and in Bhutan and in Bangladesh, they have asked us to go ahead with those proposals. So yes, India would soon be setting up TBPAs.
Sir?
Yeah, please.
My name is Farhad and I am from GIZ India. And I just want to continue the point that Dr. Mathur just made. On Saturday at the stakeholder consultation, Jochen Flassberg made a very interesting point. He said how this particular COP and this convention has the capacity for multilateralism. Now, we don't fully understand what that means in a biodiversity context. So for everybody here and possibly the entire COP that is taking place, this is something to think about. How is it that we're going to go beyond national boundaries and engage in a multilateral way to achieve biodiversity targets? And I think Ruchi already showed the first steps in that direction. But we mustn't lose sight of this idea that multilateralism in today's world can be achieved through biodiversity conservation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, thanks for the opportunity. I'm the National Focal Point for CNS and CDB, the Executive Secretary mentioned yesterday that there is a crossing from CBD to CNS through the National Focal Points. I have got a question, not really a question, but a request for advice from the Indian government, because I can see they have achieved a lot in the Target 11. The challenge we are facing is, yes, we can do the quantitative component of increasing the area of protected areas. The challenge is achieving the 9 elements of the Target 11, like management effectiveness, connectivity, you name them. If they have managed to achieve both the increase in protected area as well as the achievement of the elements of Target 11 to ensure the quality of the protected areas they have achieved. The second question is around the marine protected areas. Another challenge we are facing is most of the communities close to the ocean rely mostly on living the resources in the ocean for subsistence. And then setting up marine protected areas become a challenge sometimes. And I know in the zero draft there is a mention of some percentage under strict protection and then leaving another area for subsistence type of thing. But I would like to know whether the Indian government also has the same challenge of setting up marine protected areas because of the way the communities close to the ocean rely on living resources in the ocean, where it creates a conflict when a marine protected area is set and there is a no-take and it is linked to a community that relies on living resources. If the Indian government can share their experience of those two areas so that we can also do the same in our respective countries.
Thank you very much. Just a small remark before we disperse for lunch. Key takeaways from this wonderful side event will be, I can say that, as Honorable Minister said, that without community participation, we cannot even think of biodiversity conservation. So definitely that is the first key takeaway. And the qualitative reporting, as highlighted by Executive Secretary as well as Dr. Sarad Babu and everyone here, identifying potential OECMs, India is definitely on way to that. And innovative approaches, innovative tools which Dr. Ruchi Pant has highlighted. So these are the key takeaways. So before we disperse, can I request Dr. Ruchi Pant to present memento to our dignitaries on dais. First to Additional Secretary, Madam B.V. Uma Devi. And then can I request Mr. Ravi Agrawal